Hello everyone, Jonathan DeMelkin here, and welcome to the show. Today I'm joined with Oliver Prout and Richard Nash, and we're going to talk about launching a channel. We haven't launched this channel yet for Tsilindr, and there's just been a lot of questions, but Ollie, you've been running a channel for some time. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
I've been running a channel for approximately 90 days properly, which isn't very long.
Yeah.
Growth-wise, it's reasonably practical. There's a lot of people out there that tell you a lot of different things. As far as you need to do, you just need to niche down, find a topic that works, and put out regular videos.
I guess my problem is with the niching down thing, because I want to run a cooking show, Tesseract Kitchen, and I also want to have the option to do some vlogging stuff. I haven't done any vlogging stuff yet, but I want to. And then there's also the stuff the production company makes, music videos, short films, and corporate videos as well. So niching down is hard.
I think vlogging happens when you've given enough to someone for them to care who you are.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to watch self-indulgent. Well, self-indulgent is not fair, but nobody wants to watch vlogs about people they haven't any clue about. And you saw it with Peter McKinnon being the perfect example. His first 2 or 3 videos were vlogs. I think they were entitled "He Got Lemon in His Eye" and something else. And then he did a video which was 8 camera hacks in like 12 seconds or something. And he did really well. And he launched a channel off that. And if I give you something, right, human beings are programmed, I think, by society to respond in kind, or to feel some kind of gratitude for what that person's given them. And a vlog is where you're asking someone to be interested in your life and your views and your opinions. Well, nobody cares because you need to make them care, so you need to give them something, which is why niching down is important. Because if you don't do that, then you could put thousands and thousands of videos out, and you may do well out of it eventually, but if you're not putting out value for people, well, how are they going to respond in kind? So that's why it's important. You can expand outwards, but until you've become an authority in a very small corner of the internet, you're not anybody on the internet. And everybody, be they Instagram stars, YouTube stars, big people on Facebook, whatever, they are an authority in an area. Admittedly, a lot of them are authorities on their own asses in Instagram, or their pecs or something like that. But you look at the really big people, they've done something which is extraordinary in their field. And if you want people to care about you, you've got to do that first.
Yeah, of course.
I think there's an interesting... There's a guy I used to know who studied psychology, and he said like the average guy down the pub, he says, if you imagine like a pie chart, they know a little about everything. If you imagine the distance, the size of the pie chart is the amount they know, and the amount of degrees around the circle is every different subject. Is, well, the average guy knows something about everything, a little bit, and you get someone who's a professional position, they know a lot of subjects to quite a better degree. Then you get someone who's management level, they know less subjects. And
once you get to management, you don't know anything about anything.
That's true. But the thing is, you get to someone who's like an emeritus professor, where they know absolutely everything about absolutely nothing. So there's striking that balance and knowing, if you've got something, if you know about fishing and you know about good makes of binoculars and rock climbing, and it's a hell of a combination, but it's all outdoors.
Yeah.
It's all relative to people who like outdoor activities. That'd probably make a great YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you've got equipment, physical fitness, and the joy of just nature of sitting there fishing. So,
but we don't know anything about any of those things.
No,
so.
that's why.
Well, no, but it's still a point. And I guess it's figuring out what authority that I want to be in specifically if we were to post more vloggy or quick release type videos on the Tsilindr channel specifically, because I guess another thing I was trying to figure out was if Tesseract Kitchen would go on its own channel, and I think I've warmed myself up more and more to that, But originally, I thought it was only logical, and then after an in-depth conversation with a coworker, they convinced me otherwise, and that it was like, no, you want to put everything onto the channel, and then the algorithms will sort out everything for you. Because if you have viewers who are interested in food, and just that, then that's all they'll see in their feed anyway.
It's not Instagram.
So that what you're saying is that logic only applies to Instagram and not YouTube.
It does not apply to YouTube.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. See, and that's why this conversation right now is fantastic.
YouTube will, in theory, I mean, there was a really good video on the Veritasium channel where he was talking about ducks getting fed and how they'd feed a duck if they got certain behaviours. And then they stopped feeding the ducks altogether, but they carried on doing the behaviours. Well, that also applies to algorithms and YouTube and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. But YouTube's very, very transparent. Well, as transparent as any of the big social networks. Google is the most transparent. And which is interesting because they don't have as much information as Facebook, not on personal side. And they, as far as we understand, use the algorithm to put people in their... They use the algorithm to put their people in their boxes. So you need to be in your box to appeal to the people who are looking for that information, so they can recommend what you do to the people who are going to want to know about what you do. So I don't know, I'm in my 30s, I like photography, I'm interested in that kind of stuff. I also like cooking, but I don't go onto YouTube for cooking videos per se, maybe a little bit. So when I go on YouTube, it recommends a bunch of stuff related to filmmaking and photography. And I might pick up something and say, actually, this is really cool, I didn't know this, I'm going to watch this.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a cooking channel that's also a photography channel, your channel is now split between two different audiences. So they often say this a lot about breakthrough videos. Let's say, for example, that you've been doing a regular thing about something, but then you jump on a topic and it's topical, yours is the right video, and your thing just blows up virally. And suddenly you get masses of subscribers and it's going really, really well, and you think to yourself, this is great, until you carry on putting out your old content again. And, pardon me, until you carry out putting your old content again, and it doesn't have anything to do with the thing that blew up. So you've got a choice. You can either fuck off all of your old subscribers and stuff, and carry on with this new content, which may have been a 1 in a million lucky shot. So you've got a dilemma. Go with the 1 in a million, carrying on trying to make viral videos about something which is topical or will get you seen, or do the thing that you did before. And 9 times out of 10, this is actually a channel killer. So having a successful video in the wrong area can murder your channel. Because now nobody knows what to think, and they'll unsubscribe, they go away, they don't bother. So it's not going to work. So it's a much more of a slow and steady wins the race. That's not to say that you're not magnetic enough or exciting enough to run a lifestyle channel. There's a girl on YouTube in the last year, literally just exploded. It's a weird channel. It's I'm hot, I shower in a van, I live in a van, I have a pet snake, and I'm 21. Oh, and I'm female.
Yeah.
It's really weird. There's another one, a better example that was really, really good example. It's this old Mexican lady. And she's not your 21 hot girl. She's 60s, 70s. And she's made 3 videos and got like 1 million subscribers. And she's all about Mexican cooking. Now, who do you want to teach you about Mexican cooking? A shriveled up Mexican lady that's been doing it for 30 years? Or someone who doesn't look anything like they could be Mexican or know anything about Mexican cooking. So there's that other part of it as well, which is, do you look the part? Do you look like a photographer, or do you look like a vegan cook? Who are you? And if you had to characterize yourself like you would in a film, who would you be? You know?
Yeah, of course.
these out this whenever you get an over.
I'm never interested in. I mean, being a chef in the long term. I think, you know, from a business and entrepreneurship perspective, I could see, like, you know, if hypothetically speaking, things were to blow up and like deals were to come, I wouldn't mind like a restaurant or something, but like I wouldn't pursue being a chef as a career for the long term. Whereas photography and filmmaking and directing, that's my game. That's what I'm in for the long haul for. But I just love cooking so much, and I feel like I have knowledge that I want to share, and like I just get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So I feel like I just want to use YouTube as a platform to express that. And I don't want it to necessarily define me, which I suppose I'm answering my own question in that if I don't want it to define me, then it shouldn't be on the production company's YouTube channel. But I still think I should move forward with it.
You get your missus to do it for you.
Well, where do I find the missus? Where do I find my missus to do it for me?
So first of all, you need to get one. Go on Tinder. I'm looking for a girl that likes vegan cookery, so we can start a YouTube channel. Yeah, I mean, if you want to be successful, it's best to do one thing well. Jordan Peterson says, do two things well. Well, that might be that you take photographs and make films, which is very broad. You have to do a lot of things well in order to do those things.
Oh, absolutely, I know.
Do a couple of things really well and focus on them. So it's a little bit of the one-trick pony thing. But you can only do one thing at a time. You split your energy, you're going to fail.
Well, I mean, I feel like part of what I'd like Tesseract to become is just like, because I cook to survive as well, you know what I mean? We all need to eat. Exactly, that's the thing. So why not have a camera and film? I mean, I feel like it's not taking away...
That comes down to lifestyle. I do have a little bit of a problem with the name of the channel, in that...
What, Tesseract?
Yeah, Tesseract, as far as I understand it, is the thing from, like, Thor.
Okay, everyone might say that. Tesseract has existed in geometry since geometry's existed, so... Okay,
but what does it have to do with food, and how is that immediately obvious?
There's Tesseract in the kitchen, so therefore it's the Tesseract Kitchen.
Okay.
And we hold it up. It's a thing.
But wouldn't you get more viewers if you call it the Vegan Kitchen? The Meat-Free Monday Kitchen.
Maybe Meat-Free Monday Kitchen.
Meat-Free Mondays is a great name for a channel.
I know it is. You're not wrong.
How it's so obvious. Oh, and it says your whole story in one.
But it could be Meat-Free Mondays on Tesseract Kitchen. Nothing's stopping that.
I can't even spell Tesseract, you know.
No, I can't.
When I'm searching for it.
I was going to start a YouTube channel called Monode. In electronics, there's pentodes, there's tetrodes, there's triodes, diodes, and you get down to there isn't such a thing as monode.
Isn't mono the kissing disease?
Monode. But the thing is, monode. There is a company called Monode. There's several companies called it, but I was going to think of putting a tiny little full stop in there. So if I ever got taken to court, I can say it's Monode, my story.
Oh yeah.
So it's about anything.
I think that's all good. I mean, Groucho Marx no one ever went broke underestimating the general intelligence of the American public. I would change that into the modern day where everybody's ADHD, everybody's everywhere, and just short sentences has got to say everything.
Mm-hmm.
Meat-Free Mondays. Okay, here's what you could do.
Part of me likes to think that people will like the show and then realise that it's meat-free after the fact.
Maybe not.
I don't want
too much competition in that way.
Well,
I just go hit.
I think good food should stand on its own, and it doesn't need to be advertised as vegan or meat-free necessarily.
Doing inverse titles as well, so it actually looks like you're anti-vegan, but you know the reasons you hate vegan cookery. And then just subvert it and turn it on its head and go, actually, there's a barrier there.
Because, I mean, so many
negativity.
People don't like vegan food because they think, oh, it's lentils. And if anyone was to ever go on their own and boil lentils, and that was it, that would be disgusting.
And you'd probably die quite quickly as well.
No, I don't mean survive off of lentils. Yeah. But I mean, like, if you were to just cook up some lentils or some chickpeas or anything that people think generically is vegan... It'd just be...
Bland.
Bland, yeah. That's the word.
Another thing you threw up there, there's about starting a channel as well. There's also, it's like, what equipment do I go and buy? How do I send to this? What do I do? And there's a thing, we started a company, a limited company, to go and do a job. One of the things that exercises I've heard before now is, say, like, you have like a graph of like between 1 and 10, and you've got to place yourself across a whole section of that graph. And what it is that a 5 is people who do admin, a 10 is people who do like creative arty stuff, and a 1 is people who go out in a rusty transit van and bang on people's doors and enjoy threatening people for money and getting money in. And where do you fit? What part of that spectrum? For me, I don't mind the admin up to the creative bit, but the banging on doors and chasing money is the bit I don't do. So
you have to do all of them if you're going to run a business.
Yeah, exactly. But you need people around you who love doing all those different jobs. So
yes, of course.
As a YouTuber, you've got to say, well, what are my interests and where do they fall on that spectrum? Because it's pointless going and buying like an A7S and all nice Ponzi lighting and everything if you're going to be going out in the Lake District and running around and doing canoeing, because it wouldn't survive 5 seconds.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
So
I mean, you'd be more sorted for
what audience you're after, and
camera.
therefore what kind of editing you. Because most people might be watching on a phone. They might. It's pointless doing tiny.
Lynch would like to have a word.
So, like, for example, if you try following a software tutorial on a phone, and you got someone's HD screen in the palm of your hand, it's so small you can't read unless they do zoom-ins. Yeah. So there's lots of things.
Well, I mean, I like to hope that the Tsilindr content, obviously by the podcast, will all be seen on nice big fancy screens, because that shit was like 4K HD and all that shit.
Yeah.
But like the Tesseract, I can more imagine people will be watching on their phones. I mean, I watch cooking shows on my phone all the time. I don't remember the last time I watched a cooking show on my desktop, or maybe on a laptop sometimes. But it's like I'm just mobile, or like I have the habit of watching a bunch of cooking shows before bed and like always just ingesting whatever's going on in that regard. It's my nightly routine instead of porn.
It is the new porn.
Yeah, food
porn,
exactly.
It's essential to life. I'm not saying which. You get that on the train or a bus. You see someone on their phone, and you look over the shoulder, and what they're looking at, and it's invariably disembodied hands doing something on a white background.
Yeah, always. Yeah,
it's like someone's reached into their psyche and brainwashed them. Or is there something in the videos we've not cottoned onto yet?
Yeah.
People don't want to know about your art; they want to know how to create their own.
Yes, of course. Well, that's the thing. Like, how does all of the content we're making apply to our viewers? Because that's what we want to do. And I mean, like, for a cooking show, it's easy because, I mean, what will a viewer gain out of watching, for example, a lentil soup video? Because we were talking about that earlier today. And I like to think out of my particular lentil soup, there's some ingredients in it that I've not seen in other lentil soup videos. So it's like, hopefully they can gain a better recipe out of it. But it's a little easier to translate this conversation for a cooking show. So how can your viewers, Ollie, what can they gain from watching your photography videos?
They can get better at taking pictures because they're going to think about it a bit more. I mean, ultimately, where I want the channel to go is thinking about taking pictures. In terms of, it doesn't matter if you're working in film, it doesn't matter if you're working on digital, but the thing nobody gets is good pictures are thought about. So people come up to you, right, and they're like, "Oh, so you're a photographer? Oh, I was thinking of buying this camera. What about this camera?" And you see it on the groups on Facebook all the time. It's just like, "So what camera? I'm a beginner. What camera should I buy?" And you're just like, any camera. Like the first video back on the YouTube channel was using a box Brownie. Modern photographer tries a 100-year-old camera. Okay, it failed. It didn't work. But the second video, we got it right. And that's the whole point. Is it's learning that photography is about problem solving. But in order to solve a problem, you need to know where you want to go in the first place. And if you don't know where you want to go, you're never going to. If you don't know where you want to go, you're probably just going to buy the best car you can and cruise around with it. And you might end up somewhere nice, almost likely you'll get bored of cruising around and get on with something else.
You know,
which is why
I was going to say it's a bit like the Steve Jobs paradigm. He said Apple don't sell phones, they don't sell computers, they don't sell software. They sell, if you own this is the doorway to a better life.
Yeah.
Whereas what you just said is, if you don't follow that, then they'll just go and buy an Android phone with the biggest numbers.
Yeah.
You might well be happy with it, but it's a big pose. Look at my phone. I spent £600 on this thing. It's got a 9K camera on it and a gazillion pixels.
But that's the thing I love about like Apple's marketing, is because they're not just computers.
Mm.
You know, they are, especially back when Apple was more exploding. Like they're pieces of art that combine technology. That's the way I would look at it. I think like that's pretty much what Steve Jobs wanted.
Yeah.
Is because any machine can be a desktop personal computer, but like what made them stick out from their competitors was the fact that it's got the artistic appeal and the aesthetic backing behind it. Yeah.
I think that with going back to my stuff, obviously, what's important when you take photographs is not the machine. The machine's a means to an end.
Completely, yes.
Mm. All machines, as far as I'm concerned, they're a means to an end, whether they got visible fasteners or not. Like Apple stuff is held together with sticky tape half the time, and it's infuriating. I mean, it looks nice, it feels nice. The user experience is nice, but it's not necessarily going to get me the end result any better than another machine that I built myself. You know, it's the car analogy.
Yeah.
And Aston Martin and Robin Reliant are still going to get you to the same place eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I shoot on a £20 old Soviet camera, a Zenit.
I mean, there are limits.
Excuse me, I love that camera so much. I have two of them, and they're both cheaper than any digital camera that would be nearly the quality. Like, and I get such great results out of them every time. And they're quirky, yeah. And I mean, they have, you have to learn them. Like,
It's
and
like
I don't mean
using an AK-47 and filming it.
And that's awesome. If you told me like, oh, do you want an AK-47 of film cameras? I'd be like, that sounds fun. You know what I mean? And it describes it so well as well, because it's just this robust piece of like mechanical
something.
It's the tool of a revolution.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't say which.
I think it's great, and it's not the price tag of the piece. Like, obviously, yeah, you do get better stuff. Like, I mean, there's no, I'm sure we can all agree that if we all had a Hasselblad, we wouldn't be complaining, would we? But it's like, you don't need to start with that.
I did.
No reason why not.
And to be honest, it locked up the first time I used it.
A friend of mine...
I think you should know your tools and know how to use them, and you don't necessarily need the best.
A friend of mine, Paul Monkton, he's a reviewer.
The best you can afford.
He's a reviewer for Forbes magazine, and he sent me a photograph of him when I think he was about 6 or 7 years old, and he's got a medium format camera in his hand, and it's actually his personal camera. And he's still got it to this day. I'm like, you lucky.
I've got one with my dad and a Leica M2 in my hand.
Oh.
The Leica, I don't have that anymore. I've got a couple of lenses, but that's it. But the thing, when you're skint, everything has a habit of breaking on you. And I got rid of it. The Hasselblad went the same way. Hasselblads they're okay, but the rubber O-rings inside break down. And you pick it up having not used it for 6 months to a year. Mirror goes halfway up, start £1,000 repair bill.
Ouch.
I'll still buy one for old time's sake, but I probably prefer a Mamiya. A Mamiya 6.7. It just seems to make more sense.
Yeah, I get that.
They're about £400 as opposed to £1,200 for the Hasselblad.
What's your opinion of like the higher tier, that level of medium format cameras? So, what else? Veronica, Fuji. I forget the RB67.
Don't like
Is that
the
what it is?
Veronica.
Why don't you like Veronica?
Because it's like 6.45, right?
Yeah.
You get more shots to a roll, but if you're going to go big or go home.
No, I get that.
You know,
completely.
that's why the Mamiya appeals to me.
Yeah.
The Mamiya. That's why that appeals to me, because it's bigger. I'm really getting into 5:4 photography, so the bigger the negative, the better.
Yeah.
I had the Mamiya lenses break up a bit nicer than the Bronicas as well.
What break up? What, when you drop them?
No, they're softer. I don't want to use the B word.
They do seem to be softer. If you look at some photographers that prominently use Mamiyas, the work's nicer. It's softer. I'm a big fan of Vincent Peters, and he wants to be buried with his, apparently.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I'm not getting it. Hasselblads are quite sharp.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those lenses are fairly phenomenal lenses. But yeah, are you going to spend 1,200 quid or half of that?
Mm.
I mean, you're really just buying the name at that point, I think.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, Kiev. If you can
Oh,
find
I
one.
would love a Kiev. I would seriously look into a Kiev when I'm in the market for a medium format.
For listeners who don't know, in the 1970s, the Russians brought a camera called the Kiev, and it was about £25, whereas a Hasselblad was 800. And Hasselblad actually had a word with the British government and stopped them getting imported because it was killing their market completely. So
Kiev 88 would be amazing.
they I think they're trendy now, aren't they? They're picking
They're
up.
pretty trendy.
Russian cameras are, aren't they?
Kievs, it seems as if they're a hit or miss mechanically. Some of them are just a bit too shit. But I don't. I think you just have to do research, and ideally, I would want to buy mine in person. And do tests with it in person before even making the purchase, because it's just very hit or miss. It's like one model versus the other model. They could be identical, but one could just fuck up on you, and the other one could just. Bleh.
Are they SLRs or TLRs?
I haven't done too much research.
You change the lens on them.
I think you can change the lens, but I haven't done, because I'm not in the market for medium format at the moment. I'm still getting better at 35. When it's been a few years, or like maybe this time next year, I'll look into medium format.
When did I go medium format? I'm not till like 6th form, I don't think.
Mm.
So I've been shooting on 35 for 10 years or something.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I've been shooting on 35 for less than a year, but obviously I've been shooting digital for like, I don't know, 10 years, 8 years.
Do you think, and this is important for what I'm doing, that what you've learned on film has made you a better digital photographer?
Oh, it absolutely has. I've learned so much shooting film in the past, like, year that I wouldn't have been learning as much. Now, I will say getting a Sony A7S also made me better, and I learned more, and I pushed myself. So I feel like switching formats helps a lot, especially in post-production. I found that so much. I found all of the stuff that I did grading film over the past year, going back to grade some photos from Richard, your A7R, whenever I've graded stuff from there, after I've been doing film, like the stuff we shot with Paolo last Christmas, this past, I feel like I just got better at Lightroom, just in general through that. But I mean, as a photographer, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask, because I've always shot deliberately. Like, I would always just take a few pictures on my A7, and I would never be the type of photographer to take 1,000 pictures in a session.
Spray and pray.
Right.
Yeah, like I just never did that.
There's a thing with violins, is that if you get a beginner violinist and give them a Stradivarius, they'll sound absolutely hideous, because that violin will amplify beautifully everything they're doing. So if you're a really good player, it will amplify perfectly your abilities, but if you're a rubbish player, it will make you more rubbish than you can imagine.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I found this when I moved from a Lumix GH2 to the Sony A7R2, and it's like noise floor vanished. Suddenly it's you've got to really much more think about it, and it's every time you hit that shutter release, it's 86 megabytes of disk space you're using up, so it's like you start to think about things a bit more, and it does. It was way more like using film. So I know what you mean. Yeah, you tend to think about things before.
Yeah,
I'm a photographer from the inside out, not the outside in, and that's a big difference. But I think all photography, when it's good, is from the inside out, even if that process has only taken like a fraction of a second.
Mm.
And the difference is, are you looking at your picture through your eyes or through the camera? If I was a street photographer and I spent my entire time just looking through the viewfinder the entire time, I wouldn't see anything.
Yes.
So you walk around and you visualize, oh, that would make a good picture.
Yes.
Or maybe this will happen, or you anticipate something happened or something like that. And that makes a good picture. And the more internalization you do, often the more thought out and the stronger your picture's going to be.
The thought process is through your eyes, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you bring the camera up. Now, the problem I have with a lot of people who say, I just need to buy a good camera, is that it's the camera that's doing the work, not the individual. And
that's an assumption, though.
In what way is it an assumption?
Well, what I just said is that if you get a really good camera, especially if you've never done photography before, you go completely manual, you're going to be completely in the deep end. And if you follow the rules, yeah, you can do it. But there's so much to do: focus, framing, lighting, aperture.
But I think with the color depth and the just the space you have with RAW, especially in the new Sony DSLRs, I think it can make anyone at any skill level just be a little elevated. Because, like, especially, you see this on Instagram, all, like, the lifestyle, like, the Moody Graham style stuff, and it's, like, that certain color palette, and it's just a way that you can just make the photos look, and all of those photos are done on a Sony. You just tell, because it's got that crispness, it's got, like, the skin tones you can tell, and it's, like, are these people good photographers, or are they just really good at post-production?
Or good at following a process.
Yeah.
As long as it's in focus, you can do anything after that.
That's very true.
Photography is just following a process most of the time, even on film.
And with 42 megapixel on a wide angle lens, as long as the subject's in focus, you can frame it any way you want. You've got so much levity.
But I know what you mean, Ollie, because it is a process, but also, I mean, that's why I like directing actors more than I like taking photos. Again, because, like, it can become a bit too formulaic, and there are rules on how to take photos that you do have to follow. There are objective truths to photography. There's also stuff, like, once you know the rules, you can break them, of course. But the rules are still there, you know? And I feel like that's, I don't know, do you feel like that's ever, like, something that's held you back? Or that you've...
I really got into photography as a kid because I couldn't draw.
Yeah. And
I get angry. And you draw a picture of a plane or whatever. You look at it and go, I like my picture of a plane. Then you go, but I don't like that. That thing, that's really annoying me. Or I couldn't draw a face the way I wanted to. So I couldn't get the pictures out of my head with pen and paper. And there were cameras everywhere. So I picked up cameras and I used to take pictures of my toys. Really because I wanted to know what life was like from their perspective.
That's funny. I like that. And
I'd take pictures.
I used to do stop motion of Legos.
Yeah, stop motion, blowing stuff up in the garden and photographing it. Yeah.
Up.
Some French bangers. The adults would buy the booze. You come back with a packet of bangers, and you just elaborately rig all your model boats so that they just explode, and you can film it. And then I spent a lot of time in the darkroom, and it's kind of a bit boring, I found. A very lonely place, which is good and bad. But then photographing people meant, in a way, I wasn't as lonely in the darkroom. It sounds crazy, but and then you're working with that person to put that performance down into the picture. And it's exciting in the darkroom at that point. It's either offensive, challenging, sexy, whatever. And then you go through it and you feel like I've created something with this person that's really cool. And I understand this now, you develop a kind of relationship with every single subject of sorts. And that really where the photography of people came from. And then fashion photography seemed like a really great way to go because it combined the imagination side of things with the people photography.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly gone full circle with all these paintings that you really liked. And, you know, you could stare at a painting or a fashion picture for hours. And I'd happily do that. I could stare at magazine ads. I used to stare at paintings, and still do. And when you stare at them, they become a world, and you see more and more of it. And that was all really, really exciting. And then I realised that that's not actually what fashion photography is about at all. And I was going too far. So I kind of peeled back for money.
Mm.
Oh, I'll shoot your garments. And it was basically camera stays in one place, model walks on, different clothes, press button, front, back, left, econ, whatever, buy. And you're doing it all that way. And that kind of evolved. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do the YouTube channel, because it's like self-publishing your own work.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
So that's the selfish reason for it.
Mm.
But the other way is to try and help people create their own art. Because like I said earlier, no one really cares about your art nowadays. They just want to do their own. But everybody on social media is fighting to be seen.
Of course. Yeah.
So it's all quite strange.
It's probably more difficult than ever to be seen.
Yeah, there's just so much grain everywhere. There's so much noise that no one's being seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting.
I think a lot of people also have the idea that they want to do stuff, but they, you know what it is, like one of my hobbies is I build valve amps, and a lot of them, if you go to like somewhere like Audio Jumble, you can buy lots and lots of parts for them, transformers, valves, sockets, and all these really expensive capacitors and stuff, and you will get this stuff because 90% of it is where someone's bought all the parts, they've followed every last thing, and they've never actually gone in the garage and started making a chassis to put this thing together, or never actually done that. They've done 95% of it, but they've never actually finished the damn thing.
Yeah, of course.
And they just never got around to it, or the wife has gone, that damn thing, get it out of the house, you know. And so there's that thing of the bridge that's never quite crossed, because once it is crossed, that's the other thing. It's like if you're an artist and you want to paint and draw, you buy all the tools, you buy all the paints and crayons and gouache and whatever you want, drawing pencils, a big sheet of paper, and you sit there day one as an artist, and you've got your beret on, your smock, and your, neckerchief and whatever, and it's like, what do you do? It's a big blank canvas, it's a big void.
Yeah.
It's like a bored mind's an empty mind. Well, if you've got an empty mind, if you're not creative, find what it is in you that's got to be creative and let it out. Give it a voice, give it character, hang clothes on it.
Absolutely.
Learn it as a friend, and then it's a horse that you can jump on and ride into the distant sunset, and hopefully it'll be a sunset and not a rainstorm.
Yeah.
I don't know quite where I came from or where I went to with that, but hopefully it makes sense.
That was brilliant, though. I mean, I guess that makes me think more about like what I've been wanting Tsilindr to be. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, we can...
An all-rounder?
It is... I mean...
Cylinders around. Oh, yeah.
There's so much content that I want to make. Obviously, yes, I get it. I've read all the books. I've listened to the podcasts, and it's like everyone's consensus of the advice is niche down, right? And I don't know how to do that. And I don't know the best way to do that. I mean, I do know how to do it, but it's like, what's the way to narrow down what we are, and also what the channel is? Because it's both. It's like, what are we to the world, and what are we to the YouTube world?
You ever see one of those bits of footage of a Polaris missile? I need missile. It's a bad subject, but Polaris missile launching out of a submarine, and it comes out of the water, and it's just like malformed, and it's been pushed out by pneumatics and the engine lights, and then suddenly it tilts and goes off where it's going to go. I think it's that thing of just like getting it out there.
Yeah, definitely.
And then seeing where it goes.
I mean, we definitely have a good amount of content, and I don't know if that content's going to be out before or after this piece of content is out. But I mean, we have the music videos. Yeah, and that's our strongest thing right now is music videos.
And is it better to sort of get an animal and then say, that's a cat, that is, it will need this, it will need that, blah, 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 blah. Or do you define what you need as a pet and then try and find a pet that fits as parameters, because that might kill it before it's born?
Well, that's an interesting point, because I mean, you can never know what you've gotten until you have it, I suppose. Like in regards to a pet, because every pet has its own personality and things like that, and certain pets take to training better than others.
And this is why most YouTube channels are die in planning. No matter how much you want to do it. On my channel, I never got it started from like 2 years ago because I'd started researching and researching. It died in planning.
Yeah.
And I haven't made a single episode yet. Got tons of stuff I want to do.
Yeah.
Literally mountains of stuff I want to get on with. But
Yeah.
so maybe just get out and do it, you know.
You Mr. Niche over there.
As niche as they come. For me, it's just an excuse to go out and create some stuff that's fun.
Yeah.
To shoot loads of stuff, and I thought I'm going to start off with this film stuff. I shot film years ago, and of course, and I just like now it's time. I'm really enjoying it, and it's like, well, I never got it completely right then. It was too expensive. Digital was great. I could just shoot so much. One photographer that I assisted said, "You're not a photographer if you're not shooting every week."
Yeah.
But trying to put a shoot together that's going to cost 150 quid a week when you're like 17, 18 years old is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then someone says, "I've bought like a D90 or something like that." And you go out and shoot it, and you're like, "Well, it's not a patch on film." It's bloody hard to get a decent result from, but it's free. And suddenly everything changes. And now I've got the luxury of being able to afford the stuff. I can go back and get it right. The question is, what do I actually get from that? Are people going to like my work more because it was shot on film? No, they're not. They absolutely don't. I've put, I put the same picture shot on film, same picture shot on digital, and it was the digital one that wins most of the time. I mean, that's true of 35 millimeters. It's not necessarily true of medium format. And I don't think it's true of large format at all. I think that actually brings something to the image.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like the film I've shot has brought something to the image, but also I've become a better artist out of it. So it's like in using film more and more, my work has gotten better. Like because I don't have a digital camera at the moment. If I was to get one, my photos would definitely be better than the stuff I was shooting this time last year. Not just because a year has passed and my photography's always gotten better year after year. You know what I mean?
It's doing everything on hard mode.
It's gotten better more exponentially. So
yeah, it's really hard.
And it is. I suppose it is on hard mode. Like
it's way harder.
The Soviet camera I have is neither of them have light meters, so that's another thing. Like taking into account hard mode, and you have to know the exposure more accurately.
You after a while you just you get a feel for it.
Yeah.
And you start to stop thinking about your pictures. You just feel your way through it. And that's exactly what the olithography thing is for. Is to teach people to feel through it. I mean, it's great that you're using something which could ballast submarines. But it's that much harder to get a good picture, to get the same good picture on film as it is to get it on digital. When you take the picture on digital, you've got it for a start, and you move on. When you do it with film, you're kind of holding it in your head. That's what I think the picture was. And you develop it. Is it there? Is it that bit where you pull it out of the water?
Yeah.
You're like, is my picture on here? Yes, it is. Fantastic. There's one for the bank of good pictures. No, it's not. Why isn't it? What happened? How can I improve? And yeah, most creativity is problem solving, so it forces you to problem solve. And when you go back to digital, you don't lose that much. You lose character in the image, but that's all.
Yeah, definitely.
And sometimes colour and nice roll off in the highlights, but they're trying to do that more and more.
Yeah, the digital's getting better with that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like digital feels thin at the top, but yeah, when you go back to digital photography, it's suddenly you're free. You're totally free, and you're no longer aware in a way that you've actually got a camera, and you're present in the environment. Like like me to, well, I've got to think about what's actually going through. It's like we talked about earlier about all the people, they buy the best camera and then they just look through the viewfinder all the time, or the picture screen, and they take pictures all the time, and they're not thinking about what they're doing, and the pictures are all rubbish as a result.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when you've only got 36 shots maximum, it tends to focus the mind a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh.
I mean, when I first started out, I was definitely more and more conscious about like the shots, and like I would make a roll last me quite some time, and then I had to talk myself out of that. It was like, no, you need to shoot a roll of film, because like there's no point in sitting on it. But like I guess it's the mental block that like film is so valuable, and like I am like every time I press the shutter, I am spending money. So I think that was interesting in like learning myself to be shooting more instead of less, because I was just being too deliberate.
I'll think about the cost of the roll, not the cost of the picture.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Richard just said earlier, if it's £32 for a box of 5 rolls of 120, with 12 shots a roll, it's 50p a shot.
Something like that. Yeah.
I don't want to think about that.
No.
I'm going to throw half of those shots away.
Yeah.
And I might only have one shot on a roll that I like. And that's okay. So that one shot, say it was one shot in 5 rolls, that shot cost me 30 quid. And this is where it gets really interesting, and I start to rant. So it's cost you 30 quid to get that one shot, right? But digital doesn't cost anything, does it? So the cost of photography has dropped through the floor, and what people want to pay for photographers has dropped through the floor.
Yeah.
My mum always tells me, she was an art director back when I was born in sort of early 80s, that they paid photographers about $3.50 a day. Okay, nearly 40 years ago.
Yeah.
They still pay photographers $3.50 a day.
Yeah.
All the time. So frequently, the average small job is about $3.50, and then the next job is about $500. You introduce film into the equation, and it gets a lot more valuable, really quickly.
Yeah.
Strange analogy. There's a guy who used to know up the road, and you've probably, I'll say for the podcast because John's heard the story before, but he used to know this little old guy up the road. He'd been a Pathfinder in one para, he'd been in the SAS. He was a sniper, and he was also a brilliant photographer. And he said the thing about film is, it's like being a sniper. You've got to line up a shot and possibly wait, sometimes days for something to happen. And he says, but with a machine gun, you shoot everything and see what you got afterwards. He says the digital camera is to photography what the machine gun was to warfare. That's a unique analogy, but people just shoot everything and sift through, did I get anything? And how long before, in a 4K camera today, that's actually shooting video. That's, you're getting as high resolution as you would have done on a DSLR top of the range in stills 20 years ago.
I saw
so you
a
might
video.
Just leave it shooting video endlessly and just shoot. We'll see what you pick a frame out.
Yeah, so it's so funny you said that, because I saw a video. I think it was on Peter McKinnon's channel, but it was following Tom DeLonge from Images and Airwaves and Blink-182, and he has a red Epic Helium. And he was just like, I want to take stills of like a model or like something. So what Tom was saying he did was he just presses record in 8K, and he like gets like whatever angles he wants, and he just presses record and to cut the video, and he has like a 30-second 8K video with like as many still frames as he would want. And it's like, it's all red raw, like it's all got the color depth. It's better than most stills cameras. Like, there's nothing technically wrong with that, and obviously he's got the money for the hard drive space, so nothing's really stopping him.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Genius. Evolution.
Like, and then you could just scrub through and find the frame you want.
They did that when the red first came out for the front cover of Esquire.
Yeah.
Megan Fox. And it was a tragedy. It was just a mess. Because that's the difference between photography and film, though. Every shot in film is coming from somewhere to go to somewhere. A photograph is a frozen moment, and you kind of do the Matrix thing. Boom, I've frozen this moment. Whereas cinematography, there are no frozen moments. by default. In fact, if you look at a roll of 35mm movie film, it's never that inspirational to look at. There's often a lot of motion blur that you wouldn't get with stills.
Yeah, I did this thing when I first took up video, using video, because I've come from a 35mm background. I'd line up a shot and then go line up the end shot and then move the camera between the two. So you'd have some very interesting angle changes and stuff. But at the end of the day, it just looked odd, and I could never work out why. And you just actually, I never thought about it till now. Yeah, that's right. It's not going anywhere. It's from one framed shot to another framed shot, and it looks odd.
Whereas every frame in between is also a frame. So like,
but it's not like a cinematic thing where it's going somewhere. It's got a direction of the movement. It doesn't draw your eye on somewhere. It's going from one conclusion to one conclusion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
You can do that with a photograph.
You can. Yeah.
It's very cool. There's that whole business about the cinematic. We watched that video about this guy who's like, I make my stuff more cinematic in post. And I just thought, wanker. You know?
Well, I mean, okay, so going back to like the cinematic stuff and all the stuff that was like over YouTube, a lot of it like 10 years ago was about the grade. It was like Magic Bullet looks, now you're cinematic. And it's like, well, I mean, one, that's not cinematic, but the point you're trying to make is only one part in how to be cinematic. Because obviously the grade does matter. And there's reasons that like the top colorists in the world like are worth what they're worth, but also there's plenty of things like bit depth leads to better grading as well, and that's why cinema or even film just has that color range by default, which is what everyone's comparing their stuff to. I
was looking it up for that film I did before Christmas about the difference between film and digital. And everyone claims that digital generally, a 5D, has the same 14-stop dynamic range that film has.
I don't know.
And they're missing the point, but they're not wrong.
Yeah. You're technically correct. But...
Sushi is raw fish.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that the dynamic range is in different places. And digital cameras are much better in the shadows.
Absolutely.
And bloody awful in the highlights. And film doesn't really care about shadows. It's great in the highlights. I personally don't see why you need shadow detail as much as you need highlight detail, quite frankly.
Well, you don't want anything to be lost.
We don't, either way, but I think it's if you had to choose one, which would you choose?
Oh, I wouldn't want to... I mean, I guess that depends on the image. But generally speaking, I wouldn't want things to be muddy in the shadows. I would want the highlights to be...
I just make shadows black half the time.
Yeah, I mean, because my background is more film and cinematography and less stills. Light your shadows, for one. Like, don't get anything lost.
I mean, there's a couple of things that a lot of photographers have told me the difference between photography and cinematography is, in visual terms. We all know one's got a video camera, but it's if you've got a moving object, parallax becomes a big deal.
Yeah.
It's quite all right to light the background but not the foreground, or vice versa. And you create depth with movement, whereas with stills you don't create depth so much. It's not as important.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, all the famous 60s pictures and stuff are just people against white walls.
Yeah.
Or white backgrounds. There's no depth to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get a wide-angle lens and they put one Cray brother on top of the other and all that kind of stuff. But depth wasn't such an important thing. It's becoming a more important thing now, I think. And that's where the cinematic thing comes from.
All the old fast lenses I've got, well, I remember back in the day, it was bokeh, this terrible B word you never mentioned now. It's basically like fast lenses would get everything lit in low light.
Yeah.
It wasn't for, this eye of depth of field.
Oh yeah, of course. It's to get a brighter shot. Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, we just took the stills out in the back garden that are most likely going to be a stop lower. I mean, because it's a slow lens. I mean, like, and it was, to our eyes, it was bright. You know what I mean? But it was a combination of a slow lens and a slow
Sun
film.
going down.
It was 100 ASA film. So we were destined to fail with that.
Fix it
blurry.
Yeah, exactly. To fix in post.
And also, there's an interesting concept. I mean, we're at the start of the 21st century. just yesterday, my mate at Forbes was reviewing a high dynamic range monitor, and he was saying he had a picture of this dancer standing under a chandelier looking up. Says, and the chandelier hurt your eyes to look at. And he said you could just get the raw file straight off the camera and dump it onto the monitor, and it looked as it did when you were there. It's incredible. So is grading going to become a thing of the past?
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, not really for creative reasons. I mean, Rec 709 will become a thing of the past.
Yeah, but did you make all your photography look like oil paintings? No, you didn't, because that's a thing of the past.
I would love to have done that.
It'd be cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps with AI.
Well, I like to think I'll take a box brownie and do painting with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
The best way to paint with a box brownie is to dip the camera in the bucket and just
poke the lens out, fill it full of paint, poke the lens out, and let it pour onto the canvas.
Yeah.
See, you don't like the cheapo cameras, Ollie. You see the results I'll get out of a brownie, yeah.
A box brownie. No, it's not that I don't like cheapo cameras. I just don't like box brownies very much. I hate the way when they're in landscape, you cut the picture halfway down because the viewfinder is so inaccurate.
Oh, God.
I dislike that incredibly. That's probably my biggest gripe with that camera. My second biggest gripe is that you've got to keep the window at the back covered. Otherwise, I noticed on the 20s cameras they've got little doors that you open. I was going to give that a go soon.
So the Zenit CAK-47, this is the pea shooter of photography, of warfare.
What the
shooting shooter?
Yeah.
What, the box brownie?
Yeah.
The box brownie would be the musket, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The Civil War Springfield rifle. I think is basically what the box brownie is.
Shooting for freedom. We're killing it.
It's Kodak, so it's American. Yeah, turn of the century.
That's a video. If every camera was a weapon.
Do you think anyone would watch that?
The red,
I don't know.
The red would be a weapon so technical no one would ever be able to use it.
Oh my God.
And the Arri Alexa would be the thing that would get everything done.
The Alexa would be like a... No. Probably some...
The 5D would keep blowing up in the highlights, so it's got to be some kind of Taliban camera. You thinking a bit more about where you're going with it, or are you just going to put a bunch of stuff out into the ether and see what sticks? So I think
it's going to be... Tesseract Kitchen gets its own thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do that for fun. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a cook. I mean, I'm only a cook in the regard that I chop vegetables and I throw them into a pan and things happen. You know what I mean? But I think with Tsilindr, the production company's channel, I think what we will do is we will have our music videos and we will have, like, the podcast. I mean, do we do a separate podcast channel? Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what most people do. I mean, I don't know where people put podcasts most of the time.
Would YouTube, Audible, maybe SoundCloud.
I just thought of an analogy of this thing where channels die in planning. You wouldn't turn to your wife and say, "Darling, I'm going to make love with you now. We're going to have a doctor or an accountant." No, you say, "We're going to have a baby," you know. You'll find out what it wants to be, you know.
Oh, that's a good analogy, actually.
I mean, you can do that. It just depends. I mean,
I'm sure some people want
plan it
to birth doctors. Yeah, you know what I mean.
But these are not babies. These are what do you call them? Businesses, to a point.
Well, I think if you want a successful business, you need to
know what you're selling.
Love it as if it's your child.
Totally. If you don't love it, why the hell are you doing it?
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Because it makes you money.
Well, will we call that then? Yeah.
Yeah. I was Richard Nash.
I was not Richard Nash.
And I was also not Richard Nash.
We're not Richard Nash.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Or we'll hear you next time. Or you'll hear us next time. Damn it. And cut.